Chapter 451. Can't afford to lose. Gao Yangyu did not expect that an inferior grade martial king that he did not care about initially would become the fish that had escaped the net. Even after intervening a few times, he had still failed. TL note. Fish that escaped the net, Chinese idiom for someone escaping unscathed. No, I cannot afford to lose here. I cannot tolerate such an unexpected existence. It was not easy for me to reach where I am today. After struggling for most of my life, if I'll lose the tremendous resources of Wrestling City, I will lose all hope of becoming a martial monarch. Gao Yangyu finally made a decision. He said, make an announcement tomorrow. We will start an all-or-nothing system. If you want to play, then let's play big. The moment Gao Yangyu spoke, all the old men's expressions changed. They all seemed extremely astonished. Once the all-or-nothing would be established, if Xiao Chen obtained 100 consecutive victories, the people who bet on him would gain 32 times their bet. This was double the original 16 times they would have gotten. However, the consequences of losing became even more severe. If Xiao Chen did not obtain 100 consecutive victories, the people who bet on him would not receive any money at all. City Lord, isn't this a little too big? An old man said as he trembled in fear. Gao Yangyu said indifferently, naturally, I have carefully thought about it already. The all-or-nothing system is not something that regular people can afford to play. When we announce it, most people will choose to stop, taking their earnings instead of risking it. Gao Yangyu was right. 60 consecutive victories had already allowed the people who bet on Xiao Chen to double their money. The risk of betting on 100 consecutive victories was too high. Since the establishment of the wrestling ring, there had not been any cases of anyone gaining 100 consecutive victories, neither here nor in the other 4 wrestling cities. Within the rank of wrestling rings, no one had ever obtained 100 consecutive victories. The highest record belonged to the northern group of islands, 80 consecutive victories. After the announcement, most of the people would likely calmly decide to stop and leave with their earnings. An old man said somewhat worriedly, however, there is that person who could afford to bet 1 million medial grade spirit stones on Xiao Chen. Clearly, he is someone who would take risks. He might not decide to stop. Gao Yangyu smiled coldly. If he stops, that would be for the best. If he does not, I will make him pay for it with his blood. Anyone who goes against me will not meet a good end. The rest thought about it carefully and felt that this was a good idea. As long as they could stop Xiao Chen from gaining 100 consecutive victories, their losses would be limited to those 4 million medial grade spirit stones. However, if they failed, the thought of the payout of 32 times the bet made everyone feel afraid. Not only would Gao Yangyu be finished, all of them would be finished along with him. Gao Yangyu's expression turned warmer, and he said, don't overthink this. Go and do your jobs. Now, Shi Feng has 2 days, she should have more than enough time to make her way back. Do all of you not believe in her strength? When everyone thought of how horrifying Shi Feng's strength was, they all calmed down. They felt that she would not fail. In that case, we will begin preparations to make the announcement. I guarantee that everyone will know of the all-or-nothing system after tomorrow. I will take my leave first. After that was said, the old men slowly left one by one. Soon, Gao Yangyu was the only person remaining. After he saw the last person leave, his expression immediately turned heavy and his eyes started emitting killing qi. The horrifying aura caused all the items in the entire room to shake. Gao Yangyu had been operating in the ancient desolate lands for a long time already. Yet, he was now forced to issue the all-or-nothing system by an insignificant inferior grade martial king. When Gao Yangyu thought of the taunting smile Xiao Chen gave him while in the wrestling ring, his heart filled with rage. If it were not that the fact that Gao Yangyu was afraid of the Heavenly Extermination Union, he would have broken the rules of the wrestling ring and personally killed Xiao Chen. How hateful. Bang. 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 Gao Yangyu felt very depressed. He violently slammed his palm on the table, and all the vases and screens in the room exploded. The next morning, Xiao Chen arrived at the spectator stands on time. Like before, he walked to his usual corner and started to cultivate. While Xiao Chen fought with his vital qi, the speed of his physical body cultivation advanced at a godly speed. By the fourth day of the selection, the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer had already reached great perfection. Now, Xiao Chen just needed to reach the peak of consummation and he would have completed the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer and could advance to the fifth. If Xiao Chen missed this chance, it would be hard for him to encounter such high-intensity continuous battles again. Xiao Chen intended to make another breakthrough to reach peak consummation of the fourth layer. Now, when everybody saw Xiao Chen's actions, no one dared to say that Xiao Chen was making last-minute preparations. If they said that, they would be slapping their own faces. Those who did it in the past, all felt their cheeks turn warm. Time went by slowly. The fights in the wrestling ring continued on, while the drums resounded. However, the crowd in the spectator stands did not focus on the wrestling ring. Instead, they occasionally shifted their gazes to the constant spectator stands. Clearly, the battles in the wrestling ring could no longer attract the attention of the crowd. I did not expect Gao Yangyu to issue the all-or-nothing system. This must be the first time in history, right? However, it is too hard to succeed with the all-or-nothing system. I have never heard of anybody gaining 100 consecutive victories in any of the wrestling rings in the ancient desolate lands. Indeed. I have already withdrawn my bet. I have already earned 5,000 medial grade spirit stones. I don't want to lose it all because of my greed. Me too. Otherwise, if Xiao Chen does not get 100 consecutive victories, I will lose it all. However, I am interested to see how many consecutive victories can Xiao Chen obtain. Who knows, it might even be possible for Xiao Chen to obtain 100 consecutive victories. The focus of everyone's discussion was the all-or-nothing system that Gao Yangyu had issued. Their gazes kept shifting to the contestants in the spectator stands, anticipating Xiao Chen's turn. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen was the last contestant to go up, making them wait until the end. When the sun started to set, a sharp-eyed cultivator shouted, "Xiao Chen is coming out." Everyone looked over, full of anticipation. "I am Xiao Chen of the great Qin nation. Please show me your guidance." The familiar voice resounded throughout the entire wrestling ring again. After that, the drums rang out, filling the entire place with excitement. Xiao Chen continued to use his vital qi to fight, relying only on it to power the great dragon tiger fist. After 3 days of doing this, he had already become much more familiar with this. Furthermore, Xiao Chen discovered that, when only using vital qi, he could create the mysterious phenomenon of the tiger and dragon more perfectly. In fact, it was much more mighty than when executed with essence. A tiger and a dragon roared as Xiao Chen tested out his new ideas on his opponents. As the matches continued, Xiao Chen's understanding of vital qi continuously rose to a higher level, allowing Xiao Chen to gain many benefits. To Xiao Chen, gaining consecutive victories was not important. To him, the most important thing was strengthening his cultivation in these 100 matches. The rewards might have been tempting, but one could not fight for the sake of the rewards, one had to fight for the sake of their cultivation. Xiao Chen continuously improved himself during the battles. He had never forgotten that this was only the first round of selection for a spot to enter the ancient desolate tower. The second round of selections would be the true battleground. At that time, he would have to face off against peak experts like Ding Fengqiu and Zhang Zimo. Just within this group, there were about 5 or 6 people that Xiao Chen was not fully confident in defeating. When considering the other groups, the situation became even more dire. After all, there were only 20 spots to enter the ancient desolate tower. If Xiao Chen did not improve himself, it would be very hard for him to get one of these 20 spots. Rumble. The tiger and dragon roared together with the booming drum sounds. Xiao Chen used the 300,000 kilograms of force from his pure vital qi to their peak. When his figure flashed and landed on the ground, cracks extended in all directions. The circulation of his vital qi was much faster than that of his essence. Together with Xiao Chen's fast attacking speed, this made his attacks very sharp. After Xiao Chen managed to use his vital qi to fully control the great dragon tiger fist, the situation in the wrestling ring became different from how it was previously. Xiao Chen's aura flourished, suppressing his opponent. His strong body put him at an advantage in head-on clashes. Xiao Chen won another 6 matches. He is now at 70 consecutive victories. This fellow seems stronger than he was 3 days ago. Have you guys noticed? He seemed to be testing something out in the wrestling ring. The cultivators with an eye for details said when they noticed that Xiao Chen was no longer forced into a miserable state by the fights. Now that you said it, I noticed it as well. I recall that the great Qin nation's Xiao Chen seems to be a bladesman. He is even nicknamed White-Robed Bladesman. He does seem to be wearing white robes, but I do not see a saber. I saw that he had been using bare-handed techniques and thought that the information was wrong. Could it be that he ended up in such a miserable state during the past few days just so he could temper his cultivation on bareheaded techniques? Then, he managed to succeed after 3 days. After the first cultivator spoke, a discussion about Xiao Chen turning things around erupted. The crowd felt incredulous just thinking about it. These people had seen Xiao Chen's injuries clearly for themselves for the past few days. It was hard to imagine that Xiao Chen endured such hardship and hid his status as a bladesman just to temper his cultivation. After Xiao Chen finished another fight, an old man sighed softly and said, "This youth is so talented and unwavering." After such torture, he even managed to stay calm. He was not affected by the rewards for the consecutive victories or the arduous battles. In this budding era of geniuses, he will definitely be one of the main characters on this stage. Xiao Chen's performance today exceeded the expectations of many people. In the past 4 days, he had won every battle with great difficulty. Very rarely would Xiao Chen be able to suppress his opponents, causing them to retreat, and hold the advantage from the start to the end. Ding Fengqiu, Zhang Zimo, and the others exchanged surprised looks. They all felt mildly astonished. At the top of the distant tower, beside a drummer, a graceful woman dressed in black leather armor unknowingly appeared. 2 short swords crisscrossed on her back, and she wore a half-mask on her face, revealing her face only above the nose. She looked very mysterious. The skin that was exposed outside the leather armor looked so delicate, that the wind seemed like it could break it. Her complexion was as white as snow, and she looked extremely tender and lovely. Even the black leather armor could not hide her very exquisite and seductive figure. The woman looked at the 2 people fighting in the distant wrestling ring with great interest. She focused her gaze on the white-robed youth and continued to follow their battle. A myriad of thoughts seemed to flicker across her deep eyes. She muttered softly, "He has so much power just by relying on his vital qi. No wonder he is such a headache for Gao Yangyu." After the woman in black leather armor spoke, she gently floated down. She somersaulted through one of the tower's windows and entered the place where Gao Yangyu and the old men were having a discussion. "My apologies, everyone, I am late." Seeing the woman who suddenly appeared, the faces of the old men in the room instantly lit up with joy. One of them said, "Shi Feng, you finally came back." Gao Yangyu looked at the women before him with an extremely sullen and terrifying expression. He said coldly, "Do you know how much I have lost as a result of you moving about as you please?" Shi Feng smiled faintly, but her smile was hidden by her mask. "I'm aware. A few million medial grade spirit stones." Gao Yangyu snorted coldly, "Don't forget what your adoptive father promised me. He still has not returned me the favor he owed me." Shi Feng's expression sank. She said, "What my adoptive father promised was that I would help you once to the best of my capabilities in the Ranka wrestling ring. However, there was no mention of when that should happen." Gao Yangyu raged in his heart. However, when he remembered the woman's identity, he calmed himself down. "Very well. Just make sure that you end him before he obtains 100 consecutive victories. After that, the matter between me and your adoptive father will end." Back in the wrestling ring, Xiao Chen finished off his opponent with a final strike, ending the matches of the 5th day. Everyone was surprised by today's matches. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen had held the advantage all the way. He had firmly obtained 18 more consecutive victories, bringing the total count up to 82. Xiao Chen's sudden burst of power made several people regret not persisting regardless of the all-or-nothing system. After the all-or-nothing system had been established, if Xiao Chen managed to obtain 100 consecutive victories, the ones who bet on him would enjoy a payout of 32 times the bet. 10,000 medial grade spirit stones could turn into 320,000 medial grade spirit stones. When the gray-robed old man took out the spirit stones this time, his expression was no longer conflicted like before. Instead, it was a pained expression that came from the depth of his heart. Bearing a smile that looked uglier than a crying expression, he said, "Congratulations, you have obtained 82 consecutive victories." 82 consecutive victories, that meant a reward of more than 200,000 medial grade spirit stones. Xiao Chen felt somewhat shaken by the number. Originally, all Xiao Chen had was slightly more than 10,000 medial grade spirit stones. Now, he had almost 500,000 medial grade spirit stones. Ding Fengqiu, Zhang Zimo, and the others saw Xiao Chen slowly walk into the spectator stands. They were not too surprised at him being able to continue his streak. Without Gao Yangyu's interference, they would have been able to obtain more consecutive victories as well, so there was nothing wrong with Xiao Chen being able to carry on with his streak. They only felt somewhat disappointed. They had not expected Xiao Chen to show his strength on the wrestling ring and gain so much success. It seemed like accumulating points in the arena for the second round of selections had just become even more difficult. As for the other people, they were not as fortunate. Many found it hard to even obtain one victory in the wrestling ring that day. In order to get enough victories in the wrestling ring, the night sky was very bright. Like before, Xiao Chen carefully reviewed all the matches he had been through that day. For the past 4 days, Xiao Chen had been dragging his injured and tired body back to this small courtyard each night. However, only today did Xiao Chen finally see the benefits. Now, he could rely purely on his vital qi to power his martial techniques and still achieve the same results as if using his essence. Xiao Chen was fully confident in achieving the level of might of the Wukui saber technique by using a fist technique of the same level powered purely by vital qi. Of course, that was when talking about a Wukui saber technique without a state fused into it. Xiao Chen discovered that he was unable to fuse his state into his fist technique when only using vital qi. As far as he knew, Bai Lixi did not have a state either. It was very difficult for a cultivator who focused on tempering the body to comprehend a state. Thus, that was the next problem that Xiao Chen had to tackle. However, that was a problem for the future. The main matter at hand would be to focus on the cultivation of the firmament body tempering art's fourth layer and to try to push it to the peak of consummation tomorrow. Even before the Ranka wrestling ring opened for the last day of the competition, several 10,000 cultivators gathered outside the wrestling ring. Gao Yangyu had more than doubled the price of the tickets, but they still sold out rapidly. The tickets were extremely popular. If Gao Yangyu could stop Xiao Chen before 100 victories, just based on the entry fee alone, he would be able to earn a large sum. However, if Xiao Chen won, no matter how much tickets they sold, and even if Gao Yangyu handed over everything he owned, the wrestling city would still have to be handed to another person. Gao Yangyu looked at Shi Feng. If you win, I will give you 500,000 medial grade spirit stones from the admission fees. There will not be a cent missing. Shi Feng said indifferently, not necessary. Since I have decided to make my move, I will do it to the best of my capability. When Gao Yangyu heard this, he felt a little more reassured. Even he would be somewhat afraid of Shi Feng if she fought at full power. When the doors of the wrestling ring opened, the crowd that had waited for a long time immediately squeezed in, pushing their way to their own seat. Dong! 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 As the drums resounded, Yun Ping, the one with the first turn, went up. He seemed very weak as his chest pounded with pain. When Xiao Chen kicked Yun Ping, he had used at least half his strength. Thus, Yun Ping's injuries had worsened even further. It would be very difficult to recover from such injuries in a short period of time without any miracle medicine. If nothing unexpected happened, Yun Ping would not be able to escape the fate of 18 consecutive defeats and would be eliminated in the first round of selections. Indeed, by the time he reached the third round, after using his essence wildly, his injuries worsened and he was forced to give up. However, the crowd in the spectator stands is not paying any attention to Yun Ping's matches. They could not even be bothered to jeer. So, he ended up leaving the wrestling ring in silence. Following that, the contestants managed to win some and lose some. There were still several very interesting matches. As for Zhang Zimo, Ding Fengqiu, and the others' fights, they were as intense as before, and everyone enjoyed watching them. However, the amount of attention these fights received was not much better than that of Yun Ping's. When Zhang Zimo returned to the spectator stands, he looked at Xiao Chen, who was immersed in cultivating as usual. Then, he sighed to himself. Today, Zhang Zimo and Ding Fengqiu had completely become side characters. Now, Xiao Chen was the main star of this wrestling ring. Everyone present was just waiting for Xiao Chen's turn. They wanted to see if he could break the record and create history, the legend of 100 consecutive victories. As time passed, the rising sun now reached the peak, shining directly above everyone's heads, scorching hot. Then, dusk came, and the sun started to set. Several people had already had enough of waiting and were feeling impatient. To vent off their pent-up frustration, some of them even cursed the gray-robed old man. For no apparent reason, the gray-robed old man had moved Xiao Chen from number 15 to number 125, making everyone wait the entire day. Regardless of how they suffered in the meantime, what should happen will happen eventually. As the sun set, the gray-robed old man finally called out, "Number 125, go out quickly." Xiao Chen opened his eyes and left his state of cultivation. He got up and gently jumped down. His figure flickered, and he reappeared on the wrestling ring. "I am Xiao Chen of the Great Qin Nation. Please show me your guidance." It was the same familiar voice, the same familiar white robe, and the same familiar expression. Xiao Chen had appeared in the wrestling ring once again. The moment Xiao Chen appeared, the crowd erupted out in cheers, breaking the long silence. They were so loud that they even managed to cover up the sound of the drums. Although Zhang Zimo, Ding Fengqiu, and the others did not care much about fame. However, When they saw the atmosphere created by Xiao Chen's entrance and thought of the silence during their matches, they could not help but be somewhat envious. After all, they did not acknowledge Xiao Chen as stronger than them. Indeed, Xiao Chen had improved rapidly in these 6 days. As for them, they had also progressed a little. However, the insights they had gained during the battles were not as obvious as Xiao Chen's. Up in the tall tower, Gao Yangyu's eyes seemed like they were about to spew fire as he looked at Xiao Chen. He coldly commanded, "Beat the heavenly tone war drums." The moment Gao Yangyu spoke, someone immediately passed along his intention. The 4 towers at the corners of the wrestling ring immediately switched to the heavenly tone war drums, the drums made from flood dragon skin and tendons. Boom, boom, boom. The drums stopped for a while. Then, when they resounded again, everyone present could sense that they were different from before. Not only was the sound more imposing and resonant, its rhythm could cause one's qi, blood, and fighting spirit to surge. Although the Golden Cauldron war drums had similar effects, they were much weaker than the current drums. When the drums from the 4 towers resonated together, the crowd felt as if they wanted to go down and fight as well. The crowd's hearts beat in tandem with the rhythm of the drums. These are the heavenly tone war drums, the war drums used only in the once-a-decade rank S wrestling ring. Unexpectedly, they are using them for Xiao Chen. Gao Yangyu is really putting a lot of effort into this. The heavenly tone war drums can awaken one's desire to fight even when they are unwilling to do so. They would unknowingly exert their full power during the fight. It seems like Gao Yangyu is very worried about the 100 consecutive wins. 100 consecutive wins. I hope that Xiao Chen can create a miracle. The rhythm of the drums sped up together with their hearts. As they watched Xiao Chen, they felt like they were the ones in the wrestling ring. Even after 5 minutes, no one from the spectator stands came up to challenge Xiao Chen. Now, challenging Xiao Chen required several 100,000 medial-grade spirit stones. Without any confidence in winning, it would be hard for anyone to muster up the courage to fight. The challenge fee was a large sum that few could afford to lose. After another 5 minutes, Xiao Chen's first challenger finally appeared. He was a middle-aged man over 40. He held a sword in his hand and his gait was very stable. His eyes were as sharp as a blade and his sword intent was very solid. He looked at Xiao Chen with a piercing gaze and said, "I am Zhang Zishi, I hope to be able to experience your exquisite techniques." The instant Zhang Zishi spoke, his sword intent was already just a meter away from Xiao Chen. A strong wind blew, causing Xiao Chen's hair to flutter non-stop. Feeling the sharp sword intent approach, the qi in Xiao Chen's heart automatically left his body and welcomed it. Bang! The sword intent clashed with the qi that was about to condense into saber intent. Their clash gave off a metallic sound, as though they were real weapons. Then, the two energies scattered and formed tornadoes, causing fluctuations in the air around them. The two of them moved simultaneously. Before the tornadoes disappeared, they launched their killing moves at each other. Dang! 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 A tiger and a dragon roared while Zhang Zishi's sword hummed ceaselessly. The fight became more intense. Their figures flashed as their speeds were raised to their peaks. Punches and swords clashed, and they quickly exchanged over 10 moves. The surging sword qi flew everywhere, knocking away Xiao Chen's vital qi. As the two fought, the ground became covered in holes. The two of them moved around quickly, not giving any way to each other. 1 second they were up in the sky, the other they were on the ground. There were no places where they did not fight. After 300 moves, an intense energy spread through the air. The sword qi pervaded the two surroundings and the horrifying energy exploded. The explosion looked like 100 flowers blossoming and rippling through the air. The air fluctuated, causing the crowd to not be able to see the core clearly. They looked nervously at this scene. They knew that this was the decisive move of this fight. They really wanted to know who won as soon as they could. Someone is coming out. Everyone instantly looked over. They only saw a middle-aged man holding a sword slowly float down from the sky. It was Zhang Zishi. Everybody's chest tightened. Could Xiao Chen have been defeated? Pu Kai. After Zhang Zishi landed, he knelt down and spat out some blood. He stuck his sword into the ground and did his best to not keel over. The crowd released their held breaths in relief and looked up again. After all the energy fluctuation faded away, they saw Xiao Chen floating in the air with an indifferent expression on his face. Xiao Chen had a calm gaze and only had a faint sword wound on his left arm. That was the only place where some blood was oozing out. Clearly, he was only lightly injured. Pu Kai. I admit defeat. Zhang Zishi, who was on the ground, spat out another mouthful of blood. He could no longer hold on and quietly left the scene. Xiao Chen slowly landed. He ignored the chatter around him. His spiritual sense turned into an ancient bell and eliminated the interference of the heavenly tone war drums. He closed his eyes and rested, waiting quietly for his second challenger. The first opponent of the day had caused Xiao Chen to be at a great disadvantage. In that decisive clash in the air earlier, the crowd did not see how dangerous the situation had been, they only saw the surging energy fluctuations. However, if Xiao Chen had not activated the secret technique in the blood flame shoes, he would not have been able to get away with just a light injury. He might have even lost his entire arm. No, I cannot let the following matches drag out for so long. Before I gain 100 consecutive victories, Gao Yangyu will definitely do something again. Since he dared to issue the all-or-nothing system, he must have some confidence in winning. I have to reserve enough strength to deal with the final match, and not allow myself to exhaust too much of my essence and vital qi. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and looked at his second challenger. His previously sharp eyes turned even sharper. Xiao Chen made a decision. He planned on finishing all the following 16 matches within 50 moves by merging his essence and vital qi. It would not matter if he had to use even the dragon qi in his arm. It would be fine as long as he did not expose his status as a bladesman. He had to ensure that he had sufficient essence, vital qi, and spirit for the final and most difficult battle. Fight. The heavenly tone war drums resounded again, and for the first time, Xiao Chen made the first move. After his firmament body tempering art's fourth layer reached great perfection, his pure physical strength had already reached 350,000 kilograms of force. When Xiao Chen's essence and vital qi merged together, he could reach a horrifying 400,000 kilograms of force. When he punched, a strong wind howled and a tiger and a dragon roared. Xiao Chen fought the following matches in a similar manner. Aside from revealing his status as a bladesman, he revealed most of his strength. He managed to keep every match under 50 moves. If he managed to discover any of his opponent's weak points, he would finish them within 20 moves. By the time Xiao Chen's 17th match of the day ended, the sky became dark. It was not because each match took very long to finish. Instead, after each match finished, he had to wait for a long time before someone made up their mind to challenge him. As the matches advanced, the wait became longer. As a result, it took at least twice as long to complete the matches. Boom. 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 A surging pillar of flames flared up on top of each of the 4 tall towers around the wrestling ring, slightly lighting up the dark wrestling ring. Beside the flame pillars, the drummers were beating the heavenly tone war drums rhythmically. From the start to the end, the drumming never stopped. Unexpectedly, after the 99th victory, the crowd in the spectator stands did not say anything. They became extremely silent. There were great waves in their hearts. No one expected that the cultivator who had always been in such a sorry state that no one looked well upon him would be able to come this far and obtain 99 consecutive victories. All Xiao Chen had to do was to win another match before he could establish a new record. Everyone tacitly stopped speaking. They could not bear to make any sound, afraid to disturb the white-robed youth, who looked to be under 20. Amidst the deathly silence, a nimble figure slowly floated down under the glow of the flames. This person wore tight-fitting, black leather armor. Her milky white skin and her devilish figure were very seductive. However, when people looked up to see her face, they discovered that she was wearing a half-mask that was covering the bottom half of her face. Shi Feng. The melodious voice only said these two words. However, these words caused the spectator stands to erupt out into waves of cheers. She is the person who matched the record of 60 consecutive victories in the previous round, Shi Feng. Why is she here? I remember that 3 years ago, after she won her 60th consecutive victory, she backed out mysteriously. Otherwise, the record for consecutive victories would have been broken by her. No wonder Gao Yangyu dared to issue the all-or-nothing system. 3 years ago, Shi Feng could have gotten 100 consecutive victories. Now, after 3 years, her strength would have definitely improved substantially. Interesting. A person who has obtained 60 consecutive victories in the previous round is fighting against the current round's record setter, Xiao Chen. This is truly a peak battle. Each of the faces in the somewhat dark spectator stands brimmed with excitement. 3 years ago, Shi Feng's performance had been spectacular. It had left a deep impression on the crowd. Many people thought that she would break the record of 60 consecutive victories. Who knew that after Shi Feng obtained her 60th consecutive victory, she mysteriously disappeared, until today. Unexpectedly, Shi Feng now appeared as a challenger, trying to obstruct Xiao Chen from gaining 100 consecutive victories. The final battle was now filled with suspense. It was unclear who would win. Xiao Chen looked at the girl before him. Then, he shifted his gaze to the two criss-crossed short swords on her back. From the look of the scabbard, the short swords were about 1.33 meters long and 2 fingers wide. This was the first time Xiao Chen saw a cultivator using 2 short swords. Furthermore, the other party's aura felt extremely weird. Xiao Chen was not able to make out Shi Feng's cultivation with one glance. It felt like Shi Feng was surrounded by a fog that the spiritual sense could not penetrate. This was the first time Xiao Chen encountered such a situation when dealing with someone of the same generation. Normally, such a situation would happen only with a martial monarch and above. Dong! 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 The heavy drums resounded again. However, the heavenly tone war drums that could make the fighting spirit surge were useless before the two of them. There were no fluctuations on Xiao Chen's face. His gaze was as calm as still water. Under the mask, no one knew what Shi Feng's expression was. However, her eyes were incredibly calm as well. Up on the 4 tall towers, the pillars of blazing flames swayed gently along with the cool breeze. The light shining on the two's faces flickered. Shoo! In that instant, the surrounding wind stopped blowing. The flickering flame also stopped moving. It was like the two had decided upon this starting signal beforehand. Their figures flashed simultaneously. They started fighting with each other. Ka-ca. Shi Feng drew the 2 short swords on her back. They flickered with a sharp and bone-chilling, cold light. Once she took the 2 short swords out, she started spinning. She moved around Xiao Chen, like a leaf fluttering in the wind. As Shi Feng moved, hundreds of afterimages followed her. The sword lights of the afterimages seemed very real, making them hard to differentiate from the real one. Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. He quickly swept his gaze over the countless figures, trying to find the real Shi Feng. However, when Xiao Chen scanned the afterimages with his spiritual sense, all of them seemed to have that black fog covering them, and he was not able to figure out which were fake. Since I can't find you, then I will destroy all of them. Xiao Chen shouted, and the realistic, mysterious phenomenon of a tiger and a dragon moving around him appeared. Boom, boom, boom. Xiao Chen's arms danced in the air, moving at his peak speed. The air filled with countless fist images. As each fist wind appeared, the tiger and the dragon roared. Xiao Chen's momentum to be rose. Soon, the afterimages got shattered by Xiao Chen one by one. Hu Kai. The shattered afterimages turned into a strong gust of wind, blowing wildly in the wrestling ring. Then, they turned into a terrifying storm, howling non-stop. When Xiao Chen looked at the final afterimage, his lips curled up into a faint smile. He merged his vital qi and essence together and punched. However, the situation did not pan out as Xiao Chen had expected. The final afterimage shattered and turned into strands of strong wind as well. Oh no! Xiao Chen's expression suddenly changed. His instincts made him punch towards his right. Bang! As the fist wind exploded and Shi Feng appeared in front of him out of thin air. Her sword light successively brightened and dimmed as it hacked violently at Xiao Chen's fist wind. An astonished expression flashed in her eyes. She felt it was strange. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen managed to guess the direction which she would appear from. Even so, her hands did not stop moving. The short sword in Shi Feng's hand twirled around, and she grasped it firmly. Then, it shined with a sharp cold light, and she swung it at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's right fist clashed with the sword light, and he got knocked back. Seeing the other short sword swing at him, he quickly tilted his body. Hu Kai. When Shi Feng's attack with her left hand did not do anything, she quickly swung her right hand at Xiao Chen's face. The sword was again enveloped in the same cold light. Shi Feng's movements were like moving clouds and flowing water, they seemed to be one with nature. There was no pause in her movement at all. Shi Feng's attacking speed was no slower than Xiao Chen's. Furthermore, the angles of her attacks were even more tricky to deal with. Before Xiao Chen could catch his breath, he had to twist his upper body backward to avoid the short sword that quickly flashed past his face, narrowly missing him and cutting a few strands of his hair. Kai. Kai. Shi Feng followed closely. Each of her attacks was aimed at Xiao Chen's vital points. Her two swords danced around hastily, suppressing Xiao Chen to the point where he did not even have time to breathe. As the crowd in the spectator stands watched the two fight in close-quarter combat, their hearts became anxious as well. The fight was at a point where, if Xiao Chen made even the tiniest mistake, it would be fatal. She is indeed Shi Feng. Within the same cultivation realm, her twin sword techniques cannot be broken. Compared to 3 years ago, she is now much stronger. Indeed, the situation was the same 3 years ago. Any cultivators who ended up in close-quarter combat with her would only be able to exchange 50 moves with her at best before falling. Each of her attacks is a killing move, every strike is filled with danger. If one cannot avoid it, they will immediately lose. This is very stressful for the person fighting her. Just think about the danger Xiao Chen is in. In the end, it looks like the legend of 100 consecutive victories is something that cannot be achieved. Fortunately, I have withdrawn by bets. Otherwise, I would have ended up with nothing. When the crowd in the spectator stands saw Xiao Chen dodging with every step of the way, they could not help but shake their heads and sigh. It was too hard to achieve 100 consecutive victories. Sand and stones flew around in the wrestling ring. Shi Feng's two swords hummed non-stop as she swung them. They seemed like a colored ribbon that created ripples as it moved through the air. I cannot carry on like this, I am not able to adapt to her rhythm at all, Xiao Chen thought to himself. The speed at which Shi Feng swung her sword had no pattern to it. The speed of each swing was different, rather than a linear increase. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was slow. Furthermore, there were feints thrown in as well. The rhythm of her sword changed unpredictability and could not be dodged through conventional methods. Several times, Xiao Chen judged wrongly and nearly got struck by the sword light. Fortunately, he was still able to dodge and let the attack land on somewhere of no importance, leaving only some superficial wounds. Never mind, I won't persist on like this. At such close distance, she is completely suppressing me. Blood Flame Shu's secret technique, activate. With a thought, the black-winged Blood Flame Eagle pattern on the Blood Flame Shu slowly lit up. The two black-winged Blood Flame Eagles quickly spread their wings. Shoo! Instantly, Xiao Chen's speed reached Mach 4. He quickly moved back 1,000 meters. When Shi Feng saw Xiao Chen suddenly leaving, she was mildly startled. However, when she saw the shoes on his feet, she quickly understood what had happened. Such secret techniques could only be used once. She stopped moving her feet and the short sword in her right hand starting spinning in her palm. Profound Wind Chop. Shi Feng shouted and the spinning short left her hand. It turned into a storm comprised of sword chi, and surged towards Xiao Chen, who had just landed. Xiao Chen felt astonished as he said, one of Qingyan Peak's 9 secret techniques, Profound Wind Chop. Furthermore, it was not an ordinary Profound Wind Chop, but an altered one. It turned into a Profound Wind Chop that used sword chi and it was more powerful than the original. Shi Feng passed the short sword from her left hand to her right. She did not stop her movements and followed the sword chi storm, flashing over quickly. Hoo! A cool breeze blew for no reason. Shi Feng, who was holding her short sword, disappeared, as though she merged into the cool breeze. Xiao Chen's expression changed. He was extremely familiar with this move. Clear Wind Chop at consummation. Who exactly is this Shi Feng? Why does she know the secret techniques of Qingyan Peak? What was a secret technique? It was a strong martial technique that would only be passed down to select people. Most people, even core disciples, could not be able to learn the Qingyan Peak's secret techniques. Within the moment Xiao Chen was distracted, the Profound Wind Chop had already approached him, not giving him any more time to think. Xiao Chen crisscrossed his arms and a tiger and a dragon enveloped him. He stood firmly on the ground, like a mountain deeply rooted into the earth, as he gathered his aura. This was Xiao Chen's strongest defensive and counterattack martial technique, Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon. Bang! The Profound Wind Chop, which gave off a strong wind, crashed into Xiao Hen, giving off an earth-shattering sound. A horrifying shockwave spread out in circles. After the shockwave passed, aside from the area below Xiao Chen's feet, a 33-centimeter layer had been shaved off the ground surrounding him. It looked as though a huge wave had washed it away. The white robes Xiao Chen wore had been ripped by the sword chi. His skin was covered in wounds, however, they were neither too deep nor fatal. Xiao Chen stared at an empty area towards the right. He said in a deep voice, "I have waited very long for you." Dragon hisses, tiger roars. Xiao Chen punched. An ear-splitting dragon roar and a resounding tiger roar reverberated through the wrestling ring. The huge amount of energy stored up in the Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon was currently unleashed. It seemed to have increased by 100-fold and was pouring like a torrent. Bang! When Shi Feng, who was hidden in the cool breeze, realized that Xiao Chen had seen through her current position, she felt astonished. However, she did not hesitate to face him head-on. A berserk energy exploded out from the sword's blade and the fist. The two clashed, but their might was even. No one got pushed back. Shi Feng waved her left hand gently and the other short sword, which was flying beside her, spinned and instantly turned into another Profound Wind Chop. Damn it. Xiao Chen cursed in his heart. This was the crucial moment of their clash. Unexpectedly, Shifeng could still afford to be distracted and execute another profound wind chop. Left without a choice, Xiao Chen could only break off from the clash and quickly retreat back. Even so, he did not make it in time. Although this profound wind chop was not as strong as the previous one, it had the advantage of having formed quickly and attacking suddenly. It smashed violently into the retreating Xiao Chen. Bang! 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 Even though Xiao Chen's physical body was very strong, he was knocked flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air, and his complexion turned pale. He swayed around like a kite with a broken string. Shifeng stretched out her hand and summoned back the short sword. She muttered, "What strong physical body and surging vital qi. However, your close combat techniques are inferior. If that's all you are capable of, then you can die already." In the end, Xiao Chen was still weak in close combat techniques. A bitter smile appeared on his face as he floated in the air. However, it was not a big matter. He had managed to lay the foundation for a strong physical body in the past few days through the high-intensity matches. In the future, all Xiao Chen had to do was to obtain a high-ranked close combat martial technique, and his close combat prowess would improve by leaps and bounds. Xiao Chen wiped the blood off his lips. Then, he waved his hand. The lunar shadow saber in his universe ring appeared in his right hand. A hint of a smile appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes as he muttered, "In the end, I can only rely on this saber in my hand. It is time to end this match." Hu Kai. With a somersault, Xiao Chen firmly landed on the ground. In the dark night, a white figure holding the lunar shadow saber slowly headed for Shifeng. He really is a bladesman. It looks like the rumors are not wrong. How unexpected. For the past few days, he has only been fighting to cultivate his physical body and close combat techniques. That being the case, is him using the saber where his true strength lies. When the crowd in the spectator stand saw the white-robed youth stand up once again, holding the lunar shadow saber, they all gasped in astonishment. It was hard to imagine that in this rank a wrestling ring, Xiao Chen had relied on one of his weaker aspects to gain 99 consecutive victories. Even if Xiao Chen lost this match, in the future, the name, White-Robed Bladesman, would spread far and wide in the southern group of islands. A bladesman who only used close combat techniques had obtained 99 consecutive victories. A feat that no one else managed to achieve before. From a certain point of view, this was already a miracle. Shifeng frowned slightly. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen's physical body was so strong, that he was able to endure her profound wind chop and still have such strong aura. Furthermore, Shifeng had not expected Xiao Chen to actually be a bladesman. It was astonishing that his close combat techniques and physical body were merely a supplement to his true strength. Xiao Chen stopped and looked at the mysterious girl wearing a mask. He said, "The 9 secret techniques of Qingyan Peak have never been passed down to outsiders. Who exactly are you?" Shifeng said indifferently, "I do not know what you are saying. All you need to know is that I will defeat you." The moment Shifeng spoke, her figure flashed. A cool breeze blew and her killing qi vanished. Her figure also slowly disappeared into the cool breeze. Clear wind chop, I know that as well. Roaming dragon's 9 transformations. Xiao Chen's figure trembled and immediately split into 9. Then, 9 cool wisps of wind appeared in the wrestling ring, and Xiao Chen's killing qi also vanished. At that moment, Shifeng, who was hidden in the cool breeze, finally understood why Xiao Chen could find her. It turned out that this clear wind chop could even be merged with a cloning technique. Xiao Chen's attainments in the clear wind chop was no lower than hers. The 9 figures headed towards a certain point in the sky at the same time. Boom! Suddenly, thunder rumbled 9 times in the sky. It was the 9 Xiao Chen's executing drawing the saber simultaneously. Shi Feng revealed herself. Her expression was hidden by the mask, so she seemed unperturbed by what was happening. She swung both her swords at the same time and 2 crescent scarlet moons came out. Bang! Bang! A few clones were instantly struck by the scarlet moon and shattered, disappearing completely. Peerless lunar shadow. Unexpectedly, it was another on Qingyan Peak's secret techniques. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He was even more familiar with the peerless lunar shadow than the clear wind chop. Xiao Chen merged the remaining clones together and struck out twice. The saber light contained the state of thunder. It was very resplendent in the dark sky. Break. Just as the 2 scarlet crescent moons were about to merge, they suddenly burst apart, unable to form a complete full moon. When Shi Feng saw the 2 crescent moons scatter apart, her expression under the mask became one of astonishment. To think that this Xiao Chen is so familiar with the peerless lunar shadow as well. Could it be that Xiao Chen knows all my killing moves? Never mind. As long as I can get near, I can rely on my twin sword flow obtain victory. The look in Shi Feng's eyes became filled with determination. Her figure flashed, and she dashed towards Xiao Chen once again. Dang! 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 Now that Xiao Chen had his saber in his hand, how could he commit the same mistake he did earlier and give her an opportunity to get near? Xiao Chen created a screen of saber lights flickering with electricity. He relied on an attacking speed that was no lower than that of Shi Feng's and his exquisite saber techniques to keep his opponent at least 2 meters apart. The Xiao Chen who used his fist and the Xiao Chen who used a saber were on 2 completely different levels. The more Shi Feng fought, the more horrified she felt. Xiao Chen's close combat techniques might have been strong in her opinion, but they were at best second-rate. In terms of close combat, he did not pose any threat to her. However, when Xiao Chen changed to a saber, it seemed like he was a completely different person. He had all sorts of exquisite saber techniques and complementary movements that worked very well with them. He was so skilled, that she could not see any openings. No matter how Shi Feng attacked, she was not able to break the screen of saber light and was held back at the 2 meters distance. Xiao Chen made full use of his extended range, not allowing her to utilize the advantages of her short swords. Shoo! Shoo! Even after exchanging more than 100 moves, Shi Feng was still unable to get close to Xiao Chen. Her figure flickered and she tried to use the same method to get close to Xiao Chen that she had used the first time. Her figure moved up and down once more, creating countless identical figures. However, her true body disappeared and became hidden. Xiao Chen smiled gently. Do you think that the same move will work on me twice? A purple light flickered under Xiao Chen's feet, and a purple flower bud appeared and enveloped him within. The sword lights that filled the air landed on the flower bud. The more sword lights landed, the deeper the flower bud's color became, and the stronger its petals. Within the flower bud, Xiao Chen was quickly casting hand seals with his left hand. Wukui blossoms. Xiao Chen shouted and the flower bud immediately blossomed. A surging lightning attributed energy poured out. All the surrounding figures of Shi Feng immediately shattered. Countless purple petals drifted into the night sky of the wrestling ring. It looked extremely beautiful. Dang! Xiao Chen turned around and knocked back the Shi Feng which was trying to sneak attack him from behind. Xiao Chen could quickly and clearly sense the location of the true Shi Feng. Hiding within the cool breeze, in the petal-filled sky was as good as not hiding at all. It's my turn to attack. Xiao Chen pushed his feet off the ground and leapt into the air. He executed the Wukui shakes the heavens and a purple Wukui tree appeared. It pressed down on Shi Feng, like a huge mountain. Shi Feng's 2 swords started spinning in her hands, condensing 2 profound wind chops. She merged them together and quickly launched them. Bang! Rumbling thunder roared and the storm formed by the sword got shattered by the divine Wukui tree. Xiao Chen rushed through the shockwave and brandished his saber light. He tirelessly chased after Shi Feng, who was retreating. When the light of the petals shined on Xiao Chen, his speed increased once again. Soon, he caught up to the fleeing Shi Feng. Dang! 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 Xiao Chen's saber kept moving and the electricity contained within it kept flickering. He suppressed Shi Feng to the point where she had to retreat continuously. Shi Feng continued to swing around both of her swords, but she felt very depressed. Her opponent understood her killing moves very well. He knew everything about the clear wind chop, the peerless lunar shadow, and the profound wind chop. They were not much of a threat for him. It seemed like by resuming his identity as a bladesman, he became able to completely suppress her. Boom! 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 Each swing of Xiao Chen's saber was accompanied by unceasing thunder roars. The electricity in the saber was traveling up Shi Feng's arm, numbing it. Shi Feng's state of wind was being suppressed by Xiao Chen, so she was not able to bring out its full power. It's time to end this. Suddenly, a purple and red light gleamed on Xiao Chen's saber. It was the state of massacre and state of thunder merging together. The sudden appearance of the state of massacre surprised Shi Feng a little. While she was distracted, he used his saber to disarm the short sword in her left hand. Then, Xiao Chen took another step forward and disarmed her other weapon using his saber. He quickly moved forward as his opponent tried to retreat. Not long after, he caught up and placed his saber on Shi Feng's neck. You are defeated. I am defeated. When Shi Feng heard Xiao Chen calm words, she was in disbelief. However, when she looked at the saber flickering with electricity on her neck, she had no choice but to accept that fact. Damn it! If you had not understood my killing moves so well, I wouldn't have lost to you. Shi Feng said, feeling unresigned to her loss. If she could have successfully executed her peerless lunar shadow, she was 70% confident that she could have turned the situation around. However, before the peerless lunar shadow's mysterious phenomenon could fully form, Xiao Chen found its weak point and scattered it. Xiao Chen calmly said, your way of thinking is too naive. You can go. On the account of Qingyan Peak's 9 secret techniques, I will not cause you any harm. Ka-ca. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and walked back to the gray-robed old man calmly. Then, he claimed the final price for winning 100 consecutive victories, 3 million medial-grade spirit stones. It was now late in the night, and flames flickered in the lanterns. The vast wrestling ring was engulfed in silence. Everyone simply looked at the white-robed youth holding a saber. The 20,000-odd cultivators were speechless since long ago. They originally thought that they would be very excited when Xiao Chen obtained his 100th consecutive victory. However, the instant they saw the miracle happen, they all became very calm. Their amazement was already over. Over the 6 days in the wrestling ring, this youth had brought too much astonishment to the crowd. Now, they could only sigh in their hearts. The era belonging to the youths was truly there already. This youth is not even 20 yet, and he is already so strong. His state of mind truly puts me to shame, an old martial king said softly and sighed. His tone contained a hint of loneliness. People who cultivated always seek to improve themselves, aiming for the peak. When they were young, which of them had not have dreams of becoming famous and shaking the world? The stories of famous predecessors were passed down from generation to generation. Which of them had not pictured themselves as one of them when they were young? Why did people cultivate? Aside from improving their status, the most important thing was the fulfillment of their dreams. However, as they aged, they had to put them down, or got bogged down by the matters of the mundane world. Or perhaps they had allowed themselves to be disrupted from cultivation by earthly pleasures. Maybe they had been overcome by wicked thoughts and ended up on the wrong path. These actions led them to stray further and further away from the path to the peak of cultivation. Now was the budding era of cultivation geniuses. The glorious stage that belonged to the cultivators had already been erected. However, this was no longer their show. They were not even worthy of becoming side characters. They could only become silent observers. When they looked at the victorious Xiao Chen, their faces remained calm, not in any way different from before. However, they sighed endlessly in their hearts. Not to mention Xiao Chen's strength, they were even far from being able to compare to his state of mind. In this budding era of geniuses, this person is definitely going to be one of the main characters. Let's go, it's time for us to leave. There is nothing more for us here. We have already withdrawn out bets. This victory has nothing to do with us anymore. Most of the crowd shook their heads. Under the cover of the boundless night, their faces were more or less filled with disappointment. However, in an unremarkable corner of the spectator stands, Bai Lixi was grinning and laughing. The people around could not understand what had happened, they felt it was incredulous. Bai Lixi was rather famous in the southern islands, so many people around him recognized him. They felt suspicious and asked, "Bai Lixi, what are you laughing about? What does Xiao Chen's victory have to do with you?" Bai Lixi heavily slapped the armrest heavily. He glared at that person and said, "Why do you care that this old man wants to laugh? Are you not able to accept that? Crazy." That person cursed in his heart. He ignored Bai Lixi and headed out. Bai Lixi continued watching Xiao Chen. He stood up and could not stop laughing. If one looked carefully, one would have noticed that the huge axe that always accompanied him was nowhere to be seen. Bai Lixi was empty-handed, he did not even have a spatial ring on him. Even more exaggerated was that he was not even wearing shoes. After a while, Bai Lixi stopped laughing. He rubbed his somewhat sore butt and said, "My butt had not been kicked by you in vain. It was worth it." Back then, after Bai Lixi got kicked out, he rested for one night. Then, he made a crazy decision. Not only did he pawn off his medial-grade secret treasure axe, he also pawned off the secret treasure and heaven-ranked body tempering cultivation technique manual he had obtained from Xiao Chen. Bai Lixi also pawned all the treasures he obtained in the past few decades. Including what he had on himself, he raised a total of 600,000 medial-grade spirit stones. However, that was still insufficient for Bai Lixi. He went to look for a few of his good friends and borrowed from many of them. In total, he managed to raise 1 million medial-grade spirit stones and bet them all on Xiao Chen. When the all-or-nothing system was activated, most people withdrew their bets. However, Bai Lixi did not hesitate to continue his gamble. Based on his instincts, he thought that Xiao Chen was a person with great fortunes on his side. Xiao Chen would not lose. Indeed, Bai Lixi's instinct was right. Now, when Xiao Chen had won 100 consecutive victories, who was the biggest winner? It was none other than Bai Lixi. A payout of 32 times, 1 million turned into 32 million. After fighting so hard, all the rewards Xiao Chen had gained added up to no more than 4 million medial grade spirit stones, only a small portion of what Bai Lixi got. I should remain low-key first. I cannot let anyone know that I have won these 32 million medial grade spirit stones. Bai Lixi nodded and mumbled to himself. Then, he headed out together with the other people. As Bai Lixi was trying hard to resist the urge to laugh, his expression was extremely strange. His originally somewhat coarse and unsightly face turned even more twisted and conflicted. It was contorted to the point that no one wanted to look at him. The wrestling ring was filled with both laughter and tears. Up in the tall tower, Gao Yangyu looked at Shi Feng, who was leaving the place. He became completely disheartened. His face seemed to have aged by a decade in an instant. Gao Yangyu knew that he was now left with nothing. He had lost his power and status. However, the most important thing was that he had completely lost all hope of advancing to martial monarch. All the wrestling cities in the various groups of islands of the ancient desolate lands were governed by the wrestling city of Desolate City. Now that they had incurred such great losses, Gao Yangyu would not be able to hold on to his position as city lord anymore. He was very clear on who were the masters of Desolate City's wrestling rings. Even if he wanted to flee, there would be nowhere he could hide. Gao Yangyu kept shifting his gaze between Xiao Chen and Shi Feng. Eventually, he fixed his gaze on Xiao Chen. Gao Yangyu could not afford to offend Shi Feng's adoptive father. However, Xiao Chen was different. He had no sects backing him or protecting him. Killing him would not matter. You have made me lose all I had. I will not let you live a good life. The people who go against me, Gao Yangyu, will not meet a good end, he viciously mumbled to himself as his gaze turned sinister. He hated that he could not immediately rush down and kill him personally. However, now that Xiao Chen had cleared the first round of selections for the ancient desolate tower, if Gao Yangyu killed him, it would be an act of disrespect against the Heavenly Extermination Union. Furthermore, Gao Yangyu would be at the top of the suspect list if Xiao Chen died. If he was careless and left any evidence behind, the Heavenly Extermination Union would definitely kill the chicken to warn the monkey. TL note. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. This means to punish an individual as an example to others. Here is your 3 million medial grade spirit stones. Do count them. The gray-robed old man said in a quivering voice upon seeing Xiao Chen return victorious. Xiao Chen scanned the boxes with his spiritual sense, verified that there were no problems, and placed all the boxes into his universe ring. Up in the spectator stands, all the outstanding talents revealed envious looks. 3 million medial grade spirit stones was a large fortune. Even most martial monarchs did not possess that much wealth. These outstanding talents, even though they had the support of great sects and did not lack medical pills, secret manuals, and cultivation techniques, would not be able to obtain that many spirit stones. Zhang Zimo walked over and cupped his hands respectfully to Xiao Chen. He said, "Congratulations brother Xiao on your 100 consecutive victories and winning 3 million medial grade spirit stones. Your name will probably spread throughout the entire southern islands within half a week." Xiao Chen smiled faintly, "That is just empty fame. This is just the beginning. If I cannot obtain one of the 20 spots for the ancient desolate tower, then all these would have been in vain." Indeed, the importance of the ancient desolate tower was not something that could be compared to spirit stones. This was only the first round of selections. No matter how dazzling one's results were here, it was pointless if one could not obtain a spot for the ancient desolate tower. Mu Shinya said gently, "It's good that you understand that. After all, fighting in the wrestling ring is merely exchanging moves with regular cultivators. The arena battles would have people with talents, resources, cultivation techniques, martial techniques, secret treasures, and combat experience that are no weaker than yours. The quality of your opponents will be completely different. Furthermore, some of these people might have forsaken gaining consecutive victories just to hide their trump cards. These people cannot be underestimated." Xiao Chen looked at Mu Shinya and said, "You mean like you?" Mu Shinya smiled embarrassedly. She neither admitted nor refuted it. She said, "Work hard. I look forward to entering the ancient desolate tower with you. I shall take my leave first." After the two left, Xia Xian and Xiao Ru walked over as well. Xiao Ru had only obtained 50 victories. She had been eliminated in the first round of selections. However, looking at her, it seemed like she was not disappointed. One did not have to be victorious in order to benefit from the fight. After so many consecutive battles, Xiaoru's combat experience had already significantly increased. To Xiaoru, this benefit was great enough. Xia Xian congratulated Xiao Chen first and then reminded him, "You better be careful for the next few days. I have noticed some people looking at you maliciously." "Thank you, I will be careful." Xiao Chen understood what she meant. 3 million medial grade spirit stones were sufficient for some people to risk their lives for. 3 days later, all the cultivators who had obtained 60 victories received a notice to gather at Li Xiuju's residence. Within the Great Hall, from the original 200-odd people, there were only about 60 people left. The first round of selections had eliminated 2/3 of the people. The ones who got eliminated were not necessarily weak. In the various places they came from, they could still be considered individuals with outstanding talents and great potential. However, in this era, they were like sand being swept away by the waves. Naturally, amongst a group of experts, there would be people who stood out. In the future, if they did not run into any fortuitous encounters, they would forever remain only second-rate geniuses. The 60-odd outstanding talents in the hall were all excitedly waiting for Li Xiuju to arrive while talking to each other in soft voices. Their next stop was the famous Desolate City, one of the 2 cores of the Tianwu continent, and the city that tied the 4 great nations together. More than 10,000 years ago, it had been the center of the entire Tianwu continent. The continent was even named after that dynasty that ruled the entire continent back then. Until today, the name had not been changed. Several of the people here were just like Xiao Chen. They had not been to Desolate City before. Thus, they were very curious about this mysterious city. Dong. 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 Li Xiuju walked out through the back door, followed by 4 assistants. He swept his gaze over the faces of the crowd. Li Xiuju's gaze lingered on Xiao Chen's face for 2 seconds. Then he snorted coldly and moved on. Originally, Li Xiuju thought that with Gao Yangyu's interference, Xiao Chen would definitely be eliminated in the first rounds of selection, letting him know that anyone who offended him, Li Xiuju, would not have a good end. However, who knew that not only did Xiao Chen not get eliminated, but he even miraculously gained 100 consecutive victories and attracted the attention of the upper echelons of the Heavenly Extermination Union. When Xiao Chen felt Li Xiuju's gaze, he did not change his expressions at all, he simply ignored him. Now that he thought about what had happened, Gao Yangyu's actions against him definitely had something to do with this person. Li Xiuju collected his thoughts and said indifferently, "I shall not speak too much nonsense. Come with me to Desolate City first. After we arrive, someone will inform you of the starting time of the second round of the selection. Come with me." After they left, Li Xiuju, followed by the 4 assistants, flew into the sky. The crowd quickly followed. Li Xiuju and the others did not fly very fast. If they were to fly at full speed, with their strength of a half-step martial monarch, they would be able to lose the crowd in an instant. Who? Surrounded by a strong wind, the outstanding talents from all over the continent continued flying. Although martial kings were capable of flying in the air, doing so exhausted a great amount of essence. A regular martial king would not choose to fly in the air like this for no reason. They would simply not be able to support such a rate of essence expenditure for a long time. Only when one truly reached martial monarch, they could fly in the air as they pleased. By then, they would only require a small amount of essence to maintain the flight. After flying for 4 hours, the group was already very far from Longyang Island. Some of the cultivators, who were trailing behind, were already finding it hard to keep up. Many of them took out medicinal pills for recovering essence and swallowed them. Otherwise, they would have suffered the embarrassment of falling down, unable to hold on any longer. Xiao Chen executed the gravity spell and followed at the back, without any hurry. He seemed to be at ease. The gravity spell's special characteristic, the low expenditure, truly shined here. After flying for another hour, a black warship appeared before them. The warship was more than 200 meters long and tens of meters wide. A black flag fluttered above the warship, making loud sounds. Several old men stood on the deck. They gazed interestedly at the group of youths. "We have arrived, let's board." Li Xiuju took the lead and jumped onto the deck. The outstanding talents all heaved a sigh of relief as they quickly followed and boarded. Fortunately, they did not have to fly all the way to Desolate City. Otherwise, they would have exhausted themselves to death. "Old Li, you are too slow, I have been waiting for an hour already. Who in this group is the one who has obtained 100 consecutive victories? Call him out for me to take a look." An old man with high cultivation and extraordinary bearing asked Li Xiuju out of curiosity, as he checked out the group of youth. Li Xiuju unwillingly called out, "Xiao Chen, step forward for a moment. This is old Lu. He is one of the judges for the second round of selection." Xiao Chen made his way to the front and cupped his hands in respect. "Xiao Chen greets Senior Lu." While Xiao Chen spoke, he also measured up the old man before him. Like Li Xiuju, he was also a half-step martial monarch. Xiao Chen did not understand why, but he got a nagging feeling that this old man was stronger than Li Xiuju. Seeing how Xiao Chen spoke with the second round's judge even before it began, they all revealed looks of envy and jealousy. Old Lu carefully measured Xiao Chen up and revealed an astonished expression. He said, "You really are just an inferior grade martial king. How unbelievable. You have not joined a sect, right? Are you interested in joining the Blood Wolf Gang? My Blood Wolf Gang is one of the peak powers in the ancient desolate lands. It is no weaker than the peak sects of the various nations." Xiao Chen felt very embarrassed. He had never met someone so direct before. This old Lu had immediately invited him to join his sect the first time he met him. Blood Wolf Gang. The first time Xiao Chen met Xia Xian, she had mentioned them before. At that time, the Blood Wolf Gang were at war with the remnants of the Dark Church. It was unknown if that had come to a conclusion yet. The Blood Wolf Gang was indeed a strong power in the ancient desolate lands. They were much stronger than the Holy Fire Manor. If Xiao Chen joined the Blood Wolf Gang, even if the Holy Fire Manor's Manor Lord wanted to do something against him, the Manor Lord would be helpless. However, Xiao Chen did not have any thoughts of joining another sect yet. If he did, he would have accepted the Supreme Sky Sect's Supreme Elder's invitation on Chinran Island. Even though the Blood Wolf Gang was very strong, they were still quite a distance away from the Supreme Sky Sect. Lu Xiuju felt somewhat nervous. If Xiao Chen joined the Blood Wolf Gang, it would be very difficult for him to do anything to him in the ancient desolate lands. Xiao Chen immediately rejected old Lu. "I'm sorry, for now, this junior does not have the intentions of joining a sect. Thank you for Senior Lu's kind intentions." Old Lu said, "There is no rush, you can take your time and make your decision." The warship quickly flew towards Desolate City amidst the clouds. It was much faster than the flying speed of the group. Xiao Chen stood on the deck, watching the scenery and feeling bored. "Ha ha. Xiao Chen, you're really popular. Even at first sight, there is already someone rushing to invite you to their sect." A melodious voice came from behind Xiao Chen. When he turned back, he saw that it belonged to Xia Xian, who was currently walking towards him. Xiao Ru, who had been following behind her, had to go back on her own, because she had not obtained 60 victories. Xiao Chen smiled gently and said, "In that case, are you here to invite me to the Thousand Sword Pavilion on their behalf?" Xia Xian said straightforwardly, "That's right. As long as you change to using swords, I will immediately write a recommendation for you. I guarantee that you will be able to get the status of a core disciple." Xiao Chen smiled and did not reply. He knew that the other party was merely joking. "Don't think that I am joking. I am serious about this. As long as you change to using a sword, I can write you a recommendation immediately." Seeing Xia Xian's somewhat serious expression, Xiao Chen asked softly, "Why?" Xia Xian nodded and said, "I believe that after you left the great Qin nation, you must have received invitations from quite a few sects. Have you ever thought why?" When Xiao Chen heard this, he was stunned for a while. He said, "I definitely thought about it before. Aside from having good talent, could there be some other reason?" "Of course," Xia Xian explained, "the most important reason would be the next 5 Nations Youth Competition. If you can obtain a high rank, you would be able to obtain an intangible luck. This luck can bring the sect several unimaginable benefits. That is to say that they believe you have a good chance of getting a high rank, and would be able to bring the sect more luck." Xiao Chen frowned. Although he believed in the existence of luck, he could not understand how gaining luck in a competition worked. Luck, something so ethereal as this, can actually be obtained through such a method. Xia Xian nodded. "There is no doubt about it. It is something that has already been verified. The mysterious thing is the wind cloud arena being used for the competition. Rumor says that it is a mysterious space that is connected to the upper realms." Xiao Chen fell deep in thought. If what Xia Xian said was true, he definitely had to go to the 5-nation youth competition. From a certain point of view, in many cases, what makes a cultivator successful was not talent, resources, or comprehension. Instead, it was the boundless and somewhat ethereal luck. Up in the clouds, the black warship flew at Mach 4 all the way. After 4 hours, the silhouette of a city appeared before everyone. It was a city built on water. It was incredibly vast and grand. The walls stood tall and thick. The city looked very simple. 6 ancient demonic energy cannons, each 10 meters apart, were lined up on the wall at the entrance. That meant more than 3,000 ancient demonic energy cannons on the more than 2 kilometers long wall. There were also many holes of various sizes along the wall. Unexpectedly, inside the holes, there were more ancient demonic energy cannons. Adding all of them together, there were at least 10,000 ancient demonic energy cannons on the city wall. Attacked by 10,000s of such cannons, even a peak martial monarch would fall immediately. Just thinking about it made one tremble in fear. There were 18 gates opened in front. Countless ships were entering through the main city gates in an extremely orderly fashion, watched by rows of soldiers standing on the water. They were standing as though they were on flat land, maintaining the order at the city gates. The black warship slowly descended and did not fly over the city waters directly. Xiao Chen took a look and saw that the other flying spirit beasts or merchant ships also descended to the same level, heading for the water surface. Apparently, Desolate City did not permit any ships or spirit beasts to fly over it. Pa! The warship landed on the surface of the heavenly extermination lake, creating large splashes. Then, they slowly headed for the main gate. The surrounding ships and the cultivators riding spirit beasts all gave way when they saw the flag on the black warship. The guards at the gate took a quick glance at the crowd on the ship and ignored them. They did not even have to pay the entry toll, and entered directly, unhindered. After they passed through the tunnel under the city wall, the area in front of them became wide and spacious. Countless people were walking on the streets of both sides of the shore. There were many cultivators from the various nations and fiend cultivators. It was very bustling. The buildings in the surroundings were all incredibly grand. They maintained the characteristics of the Tianwu dynasty, making one feel like they had traveled 10,000 years into the past. Is this desolate city? The outstanding talents on the deck said, feeling moved. The young cultivators, including Xiao Chen, looked around curiously. Just at that moment, a huge, towering ship appeared before them. It was so big that it was no longer on the scale of a ship. It was more of a fortress moving on the water. There were 3 golden banners fluttering on its helm, and 3 words, Jeweled Moon Pavilion, were written in calligraphy on the banners. Xia Xian, who was beside Xiao Chen, said, "This is the Jeweled Moon Pavilion. It is the largest auction house in Desolate City. They organize a large auction every month." Xiao Chen whispered in surprise, "You came to Desolate City before?" Xia Xian nodded and said, "Several times. There are many good items in the Jeweled Moon Pavilion. There will definitely be plenty of the close combat secret manuals that you are seeking." Xiao Chen felt it was strange and asked, "How did you know that I am looking for close combat secret manuals?" Actually, Xiao Chen was not weak at close combat. A medial grade fist technique was sufficient for most people in his same cultivation realm. However, when compared to the geniuses of his generation, it was inferior. Within the same generation, when they reached this cultivation realm, all of them would use superior grade earth-ranked martial techniques, if not peak superior grade earth-ranked martial techniques. Xia Xian smiled and said, "Everyone can tell that if you have a better fist technique, when coupled with your strong physical body, you would be able to draw even with Shi Fen, without having to draw your saber." Xiao Chen now understood. After seeing so many of his matches, it was not strange that Xia Xian saw what he was lacking. Unfortunately, the Jeweled Moon Pavilion would only host a truly grand auction once every half a year. At that time, you would be able to see the true peak treasures. If you are in urgent need of close combat manuals, you can go and look around the ancient desolate underground market. There are all sorts of people there, and you might be able to find something good. Xia Xian could not stop speaking and introduced many things to Xiao Chen. The matters of Desolate City were really an eye-opener for him. Rivers flowed everywhere in Desolate City, so the black warship flowed along one of them. After several turns, it stopped at a riverside. Li Xiuju came out of the ship's hold and led the group to the land. After walking for about an hour, he stopped in front of a plaza. A hundreds of meters tall sculpture stood erect on the tall platform in the center. The sculpture held a sword in one hand, pointing it angrily at the sky. This was the first Tianwu emperor, who had established the Tianwu dynasty. It was unknown for how long had this sculpture stood here already. A simple but vast aura came from the sculpture, spreading through the entire plaza. When the crowd walked to the center, they felt a strange solemnness. There were about 10 arenas arranged neatly around the sculpture, and many people had already gathered at its feet. An assistant beside Li Xiuju said, "The arena battles of the second round of selection will take place in this Tianwu Plaza. The date is not fixed yet. However, you can rest assured. We know that you all have just been through continuous battles and would need some time to recuperate. The arena battles will not take place anytime soon." When the crowd heard this, they felt more at ease. They have fought 100 high-intensity battles over a period of 6 days. Without sufficient time to rest, it would be hard for them to return to their peak state. The crowd at the feet of the sculpture were gathered in 3 separate groups. Unless there were some special reasons, the ones who had passed the first round had been split into these 3 groups according to the group of islands they came from. Xiao Chen was just looking through the people from the other 3 groups of islands, when he revealed a surprised expression. Duan Muqing, Ji Changkong, Chu Chaoyun, Yu Chengshe, and Hua Yunfei were there as well. These 5 people were now medial grade martial kings. However, the more Xiao Chen thought about it, the less surprised he was. If Xiao Chen did not cultivate a heaven-ranked cultivation technique and had used large amounts of natural treasures for his breakthrough, he would have already been a superior grade martial king. Furthermore, the cultivation realm was not truly indicative of combat prowess. Unless Xiao Chen's opponents were stronger by an entire realm, he was confident in dealing with them, even with half-step martial monarchs. The weak half-step martial monarchs were simply no match for him. When the groups at the sculpture's feet noticed Xiao Chen and the others, they looked over. I heard that someone on Longyang Island obtained 100 consecutive victories. I wonder who it is. This is truly a difficult feat. Even with the strength of beast-taming Abad's Zuo Mo only managed 70 consecutive victories in the northern islands before being stopped by a draw. One of the 3 experts of the Myriad Fiend Palace, Chu Mu, only obtained 60 consecutive victories. This person actually managed to obtain 100 consecutive victories. He definitely is not simple. Soft whispers enveloped the crowd. Everyone was curious about the contestant who had obtained 100 consecutive victories. Hua Yunfei swept his gaze across the incoming group and his expression changed. He said to Mu Chengshe and Ji Changkong, who were beside him, "Look there, see who is here." The few of them quickly looked over and discovered a white-robed Xiao Chen standing calmly amongst the crowd. Ji Changkong clenched his fists so tightly that they made crackling sounds. His gaze turned sinister, and he said in a cold voice, "Good, just in time. I will pay back for the humiliation I have suffered back then 100 times over." Mu Chengshui's expression was rather unsightly as well. When he sensed Xiao Chen's cultivation, he felt it was strange. So he said, he seemed to only be an inferior grade martial king. How did he get invited to the selection for the ancient desolate tower? Hua Yunfei mocked, he probably got in by means of his connections. This is good, his true colors will be revealed in these arena battles. Half a year ago, in the battle at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Xiao Chen had defeated all of them in a 1 versus many match before the various big powers of the great Qin nation, becoming famous. To these people, who were proud talents of the great Qin nation since young, this was undoubtedly a great humiliation. The most important thing was that, not too long before that, Xiao Chen had been only a minor character they could have casually squashed with one hand. However, 1 year later, he defeated everyone. No one would feel resigned at such a thing happening. On the contrary, Duan Muqing's gaze was very calm, without great fluctuations. To Duan Muqing, the battle at the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had ended all grudges between her and Xiao Chen. If she kept harping on this, her own mental state would only become more unstable. Chu Chaoyun seemed like he did not hear the words of those around him. He simply kept staring at the Tianwu Emperor's sculpture. His expression was unfathomable. Shoo! Suddenly, several old men descended onto the platform. They were dressed similar to Li Xiuju, however, there were 2 extra gold embroidered lines on their collars. Clearly, they were ranked higher. The person leading them looked through the crowd. A formless might spread out, causing everyone to quiet down. The second rounds of selection will begin in 10 days. I hope everyone will gather back here on time. Those who are late will be considered to have given up. Following that, the old man gave a simple explanation of the arena battle rules. They would be fighting 30 matches in 2 days. There would be 15 matches each day. The victor would gain 2 points, the loser would lose 2 points. A draw would result in 1 point being awarded to both. The opponents would be decided by the means of drawing lots. After the arena battles ended, then top 20 people would obtain the right to enter the ancient desolate tower. After the old man explained the rules, he did not speak anymore. Everyone left the place and made their final preparations in the remaining 10 days. 10 days were sufficient for Xiao Chen to reach consummation in the firmament body tempering art's 4th layer. The 4 remaining acupoints on his left should open by the beginning of the second round of selections. Xiao Chen's pure physical strength had now reached 400,000 kilograms of force. When combining it with his essence, it was easy for him to achieve 450,000 kilograms of force. If Xiao Chen could obtain a superior grade Earth-ranked or peak superior grade Earth-ranked fist technique, obtaining one of the 20 spots would be a done deal. He wandered out of the plaza, buried in thoughts. Xiao Chen, wait for a moment. Sha Xian called out to Xiao Chen from behind. Sha Xian said softly, "You don't have a place to stay at in Desolate City, right? There is a branch of my 1,000-sword pavilion here. Would you like to stay there? I guarantee that you will be able to cultivate in peace there." After Sha Xian spoke, she looked at Xiao Chen in anticipation. She hoped that he would agree to this arrangement. The strength that Xiao Chen had displayed was already sufficient to rank within the top 50 in the next 5-nation youth competition. Thus, he was definitely someone who would obtain luck, it was just a matter of how much. Such a person was worth recruiting. Furthermore, she was now the true inheritor of 1,000-sword pavilion. If nothing unexpected happened, she would be the next leader of the sect. It would be good for Sha Xian to build good relationships with Xiao Chen now. When he matured, he would definitely be a great help to the 1,000-sword pavilion. Even ignoring Xiao Chen's strength, his character suited Sha Xian very well. He was neither arrogant nor impatient, he was calm and collected. He was someone who would definitely not betray his friends. No matter from what angle Sha Xian looked at this situation, such a person was worth making friends with. Xiao Chen smiled gently and rejected her. "Many thanks for your kind intentions. I am used to moving around on my own." Sha Xian seemed slightly disappointed. She said, "Very well. If you get into any trouble, you can come to the 1,000-sword pavilion to look for me at any time." After that, Sha Xian told Xiao Chen the address of the 1,000-sword pavilion's branch. Xiao Chen nodded and thanked the other party. He knew that by doing this Sha Xian was making a promise to him. Indeed, Xiao Chen was now in some trouble, even though he had arrived at the ancient desolate lands not long ago. Although he could easily settle it with the 2 medallions he had, they were last resorts and were not to be used unless absolutely necessary. After Xiao Chen left, he first went to a restaurant to have some food. Then he asked a waiter where he could rent a courtyard. Before the sky turned dark, he found a courtyard he was satisfied with. The rent was 2,000 inferior grade spirit stones a day. Xiao Chen practiced a round of his fist techniques in the courtyard and then practiced the Wukui saber technique. Finally, he took out 2 medial grade spirit stones and sat down cross-legged, starting his cultivation. The vast energy of the spirit stones quickly poured into Xiao Chen's body. After a great cycle, it turned into the purely liquid essence and started dripping into the Qi whirlpool. After 2 hours, Xiao Chen exhausted the 2 medial grade spirit stones. He opened his eyes and smiled bitterly, feeling helpless. When the purple thunder divine incantation reached the 6th layer, the amount of spiritual it used was too astonishing. 2 medial grade spirit stones only converted to 10 odd drops of liquid essence. It looks like there is still some time before I can advance to medial grade Martial King. I am still far from filling up this container. Xiao Chen sighed. He entered the house and lit up the lamps. Then, he started reading Bai Lixi's notes on body tempering. Xiao Chen had to acknowledge that Bai Lixi was a genius when it came to body tempering. The experiences recorded in there had been extremely useful to him. The previous time when he continuously fought using only vital qi, his firmament body tempering arts cultivation advanced very quickly, and it had all been due to these notes. The most important thing was that Xiao Chen's comprehension on vital qi had increased significantly. This proved that what Bai Lixi had said was correct. Xiao Chen estimated that Bai Lixi's physical strength had already reached at least 500,000 kilograms of force. With one punch, he could easily shatter mountains. Thus, Xiao Chen continued to study these cultivation notes, lest he could end up walking down the wrong path and wasting time. It was now late in the night. An unknown amount of time had already passed. The flames in the oil lamps swayed gently. Every time the flames swayed, it seemed like they were about to go out. Xiao Chen gazed out of the window. He sent out his spiritual sense. After a while, he recalled it back and put down the notebook in his hands. He blew out the lamps and said indifferently, "Indeed, the large amount of 3 million medial-grade spirit stones would attract some reckless flies." 3 cultivators with withdrawn killing chi stood under a large tree outside Xiao Chen's courtyard. 2 of them were very familiar to him. The person on the right was the person who wanted to use Xiao Chen and Xia Xian as a scapegoat in the qualifying round for the first round of selection. He was the second disciple of the Lamenting Valley's Valley Lord, Mu Nan. The one on the other side was the one who had been mocking Xiao Chen throughout the first round of selection, but ended up getting crippled in the first round and losing his qualifications to continue. These 2 people had deep grudges with Xiao Chen, so it was not surprising that they worked together to bring him down. As for the final person, he was dressed in black and wore a black mask. He only revealed his eyes, which made him seem mysterious. Mu Nan said somewhat worriedly, "Would we offend the Heavenly Extermination Union by doing this? He is someone who had obtained 100 consecutive victories after all." A vicious look flashed in Yun Ping's eyes. He laughed coldly and said, "It's not like we are killing him. We are just chopping off an arm. What are you afraid of?" The black-clothed person nodded and said, "That's right. A genius missing an arm is just trash. Would the Heavenly Extermination Union care about trash? As mentioned before, the 2 of you can split the 3 million medial-grade spirit stones among yourselves. I am only after the other things on him." When Mu Nan heard the 3 million medial-grade spirit stones being mentioned, a greedy look flashed in his eyes. In the end, the worry in his heart vanished. He said resolutely, "Let's do it. This brat nearly got me killed by demonic beast. I should make him pay for that." After the 3 reached a common understanding, they did not speak anymore. They quietly went over the walls of the courtyard. However, when they prepared to break into Xiao Chen's bedroom, they suddenly discovered that Xiao Chen was already waiting quietly under a small tree in the yard. He did not seem surprised at their arrival. "It's about time. Ka ca." Xiao Chen ignored the shocked looks on their faces. He instantly drew his saber, momentarily blinding them with its dazzling electric light. The 3 of them were incredibly astonished. They were initially prepared to beat Xiao Chen to the point he would become helpless. Who knew that he would end up snatching the initiative instead? Roaming Dragon's 9 transformations, Clear Wind Chop. Xiao Chen's figure trembled and split into 9. 9 cool breezes blew in the courtyard, creating a soothing atmosphere. Retreat. When the group felt no killing chi, but a strange cool breeze, they did not bother thinking too much. They immediately drew their weapons and fled. "You think you can run?" Xiao Chen focused his gaze on Yun Ping and snorted coldly. He activated the blood flame shoes and leapt towards him, reaching Mach 3.5 instantly. Dang! 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 Yun Ping knew he could not escape, so he stopped trying. A resolute look flashed on his face as he unleashed his sword light's peak power. He tried to block the 9 figures which were attacking from different directions. However, Xiao Chen had used the clear wind chop in his attacks. Thus, one could only see the cool breeze and not the saber. It was extremely hard to grasp the movement as there was also no killing chi leaking. Yun Ping could only block using his instincts. Not long into the battle, Xiao Chen had already left behind many bleeding wounds of various sizes on his body. When Xiao Chen saw Mu Nan and the black-clothed person rushing at him with the corner of his eyes, his 9 figures merged together. He moved back, leaving afterimages in the air. He did not let himself get surrounded by the 3. The earlier attacks had already caused Yun Ping to suffer significant injuries. The 3 could not help but feel a little afraid. I will distract him while the 2 of you find an opportunity to ambush him, okay? The black-clothed person suggested with a sullen voice, coldly looking at the other 2. Kill. The moment the black-clothed person spoke, he brandished his sword. A pale white flame surged up onto his sword, looking very sinister in the dark night. It looks like it is an extreme yin flame. In that case, I will use my extreme yang flame to completely suppress you. With just a thought, the flickering electricity on Xiao Chen's saber started burning and turned into strands of purple flames. Bang! The weapons clashed and so did the flames. They exploded out in the dark night, making it as bright as day. Yin and Yang were opposing attributes. The moment they clashed with each other, the scale of the destructiveness that followed was extremely astonishing. The air became incredibly scorching. The coldness of the night was now nowhere to be found. Yun Ping and Mu Nan took advantage of this opportunity to attack. However, Xiao Chen's figure flashed and unhurriedly dodged Mu Nan's attack. Then, Xiao Chen clenched his left hand and sent out a fist wind, forcing him back. As for Yun Ping's attack, Xiao Chen had found its weakness with just one glance. He smiled coldly and kicked Yun Ping's wrist. The bones in Yun Ping's wrist immediately shattered and he dropped his sword. However, Xiao Chen did not stop moving his feet and followed up with another kick to his chest. Bang! Blood trickled out of Yun Ping's mouth as he flew backward, crashing into the wall. Anger flashed in the black-clothed person's eyes. He had not expected Yun Ping to last for even one attack. He said coldly, "Mu Nan, why are you still hiding your true strength?" Mu Nan did not retort. He casually stuck the sword in his hand into the ground. Then he spread his palm out and holding it parallel to the ground, he started moving it up and down. When Mu Nan's palm reached his lower jaw, he spat out strands of turbid qi. His expression changed, becoming mournful and pained. Lamenting palm. Mu Nan shouted and locked onto Xiao Chen with his aura and sending a palm strike at him. Yun Ping's attack had caught Xiao Chen unprepared. This state of lament made him feel depressed. Unexpectedly, he even felt like giving up on life. It was truly a powerful state. It actually affected the consciousness and prevented one from mustering up any fighting spirit. It was somewhat similar to Bai Zhan's state. It was a state of emotions as well. Unfortunately, it had not been comprehended to great perfection and did not have too much impact on Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense turned into an ancient bell and rang in his mind. The state of lament that had affected him was immediately chased out. Wu Kui shakes the heavens. Xiao Chen used a strong move to temporarily push the black-clothed person back. Then, he quickly turned around. He merged his vital qi and essence and welcomed Mu Nan's lamenting palm infused with the state of lament with a fist. When the attacks clashed, 8 acupoints on Xiao Chen's arm exploded out. Since you want to clash head-on, then I shall go head-on with you. I will use my full power and cripple you. Xiao Chen's gaze turned cold. He gathered the dragon qi together and violently pushed it forward with his left fist. Bang! 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 In front of Xiao Chen's absolute suppressive power, Mu Nan's palm strike, with an ineffective state, was knocked back. The might and force of Xiao Chen's punch did not decrease. With 3 crunching sounds, Mu Nan's arm broke into 3 pieces, splattering blood everywhere as it flew into the air. When the black-clothed person, who had just dealt with the Wukui shakes the heavens, saw this scene. His expression changed greatly. He had not expected that Yun Ping and Mu Nan would be disabled in a few moves. One was severely injured and the other had lost an arm. They had completely lost all their combat prowess. Damn it. I should have known. These two people did not even manage to obtain 60 victories. They should not have been very strong. Yet, I still came to them seeking a cooperation. I must have been blinded by the gains. To think I believed that I can simply do away with them at the end and take everything for myself. The black-clothed person thought in frustration when he looked at the two people who could not even last an attack. There are no more chances, retreat. Flaming cross chop. The black-clothed person shouted and his sword slashed horizontally. The pale white flames immediately flared up. After he pulled back the sword, he lowered it, sending out a vertical line of white flames. The two lines of flames formed a cross as they moved towards Xiao Chen. The cross-shaped flames grew larger in the wind. A short while later, they had already become humongous. Without even bothering to see how powerful or how effective this move was, the black-clothed person quickly fled backward. Thinking of running. You think that is possible? Xiao Chen said coldly as he watched the flaming cross-chop. He tightened his grip on his saber. Wukui breaks the heavens. Xiao Chen shouted and executed his state to its peak. Thunderclouds churned in the sky, rumbling angrily without end. Bolts of lightning tore through the night sky. A Wukui tree quickly formed above them. The light on the saber slowly grew brighter. When the Wukui tree completely formed, the beam of light on the saber also became complete. A resplendent and boundless purple beam of light quickly extended towards the front. Bang! In an instant, the light beam broke through the intersecting point of the flaming cross, shattering it. The flaming cross turned into sparks and scattered into the night sky like crystalline flowers. The black-clothed person felt startled. He had not expected his trump card to be broken by Xiao Chen so fast. It did not even manage to hold Xiao Chen back for a moment. He could not help but do his best to increase his speed. Mu Nan, whose arm had been broken off, stood up weakly. He had lost most of the blood in his body. He quickly tried to run away. He did not even bother to bandage his wound, he just needed to flee first. Xiao Chen's gaze swept past the fleeing Mu Nan, and his expression turned cold. Since they planned to sneak in and attack him, they should have been prepared for the consequences of failing. Die. A silvery light flashed. The palm sword flew out, and a bowl-sized hole appeared in Mu Nan's chest. No signs of life remained after that. On the other side, Yun Ping had already crawled to the wall. His ribs were broken. Normally, he only needed to leap up gently to get onto the wall. Now, he had to spend a lot of strength to climb up. Xiao Chen flicked his finger and sent out an extremely dense purple thunder true fire. He ignored Yun Ping and quickly chased after the black-clothed person. The purple flames pierced through the back of Yun Ping's head. His eyes lost their light, and he fell heavily to the ground. The clumps of red light came out of the two corpses and chased after Xiao Chen, entering his sea of consciousness. The pool of blood in the scarlet throne increased in size slightly, and the sensation of falling into depravity appeared again. Xiao Chen's gaze became resolute. He did not hesitate to cut off the pleasurable feeling of sinking into depravity and continued chasing after the person in front of him. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense detected that the black-clothed person moved forward at Mach 3. Given Xiao Chen's speed of Mach 3.5, he would not have required much time to catch up. However, the area in front was a bustling city. Within Desolate City, there were many strong experts. Xiao Chen was afraid of attracting unnecessary trouble, so he intended to block his opponent forcefully. Lightning evasion. Lightning evasion. Lightning evasion. Xiao Chen did not care about the exhaustion of essence and mental energy. Thunder roared around them and bolts of lightning flashed. Xiao Chen looked like he was teleporting as he continued to advance forward. Soon, he drew close to the black-clothed person. Hearing thunder roar continuously, the black-clothed person could not help but look back to take a look. However, it was better for him to not see what was happening. His expression turned extremely horrified. Every time a bolt of lightning landed, Xiao Chen would appear right behind him. The distance between him and Xiao Chen shortened rapidly. The black-clothed person thought in astonishment, "What movement technique is this? Why does it look like he is teleporting?" Boom! A bolt of lightning landed in front of him and Xiao Chen's figure suddenly appeared. The black-clothed person quickly turned around and moved back a few steps. He tightly grasped his sword with his right hand. Xiao Chen pointed his saber at his opponent and shouted coldly, "Hiding your head but showing your tails. Who exactly are you?" TL note. Hiding your head but showing your tails. This means revealing half-truths. You don't have to care about who I am. You only need to know that I will be claiming that peak high-ranked demon core on you sooner or later. The black-clothed person calmed down and sighed to himself. It looks like I will have to use my trump card today. Holy fire burning the heavens. The black-clothed person shouted as he formed hand seals with his hands. The area around his dantian suddenly turned transparent. A pale white flame appeared above the black-clothed person's dantian as he formed the hand seals. It quickly flared up. Boom! When the black-clothed person finished forming the hand seals, the pale white flames immediately surged out of his body, forming a white flaming tornado. It flew towards Xiao Chen. The flames were incomparably cold and the surrounding temperature plummeted. This caused one to feel a bone-chilling sensation, like even blood would freeze. What a strong yin flame, Xiao Chen thought to himself. It looks like I will have to use the purple thunder true fire to block. It was likely that even before an ordinary saber technique could get close, it would be frozen into ice by this extreme yin flame. With just a thought, a fierce purple started to burn in Xiao Chen's right eye. Soon, it formed into a purple tornado and spewed out. Bang! A purple and a white tornado quickly clashed in the dark night. The two tornadoes did not give way to each other. As they were mutually restraining flames, the moment they came into contact with each other, they tried to swallow each other up. However, the two tornadoes were equally strong. Neither could overpower the other. They could only continuously hold each other back until they eventually exploded. The shockwave spread out in a ring into the surroundings. Deep spiraling pits appeared in the ground and cold winds blew. When the two got struck by the shockwave, they became somewhat pale. However, given Xiao Chen's strong body, the amount of damage that he could endure was greater than what the other party could. When suffering the same attack, Xiao Chen would definitely suffer from less severe injuries than his opponent. Shoo! When the tornadoes shattered, a strand of purple flames flew towards Xiao Chen. That was the origin flame of the purple thunder true fire. On the other side, the origin flame of the extreme yin flame also flew towards the black-clothed person. Glittering Wukui. Qi breaks Wukui. Wukui transforms to Qi. Xiao Chen thought, I see an opportunity. Xiao Chen did not wait for the purple thunder true fire's origin flame to re-enter his eye. He immediately sent out several attacks at the black-clothed person. He instantly executed the three foundational moves of the Wukui saber technique. A continuous chain of purple saber chi flickered with a crackling electric light. Each wave was larger than the one before, moving towards the black-clothed person and attacking him endlessly. The black-clothed person was currently focused on controlling his origin flame, guiding it back into his body. After all, that was the origin flame that he had spent at least 10 years to successfully condense. If any cultivator lost 10 years of effort, they would all feel despair. The black-clothed person thought that Xiao Chen would do the same as him, and focus on retrieving his own origin flame. Who knew that this fellow would not move as expected? Xiao Chen even gave up on retrieving his origin flame and took the initiative to attack. This made the black-clothed person feel like spewing blood. The black-clothed person was caught off guard, and the surging purple saber chi left several bloody wounds on his body. The purple electricity instantly poured into his body and crackled, making his wounds feel incredibly painful and slowing him down. While you are affected, I will kill you. Xiao Chen took the initiative to attack and did not have any intention to spare this person. His aura soared, and his qi and blood surged without end. Xiao Chen executed the extremely tyrannical Wukui shakes the heavens once again. The divine Wukui tree appeared, carrying a strong electrical force as it headed for the black-clothed person. It pressed onto him like a heavy cauldron. Bang! The black-clothed person received this attack head-on and was knocked back. He vomited large mouthfuls of blood, and his clothes immediately ripped to shreds. Xiao Chen, consider this my loss this time. However, as long as you remain in the ancient desolate land, I will make you pay back what you owe me tenfold, or even 100-fold. The black-clothed person glanced at the floating white origin flame feeling unresigned. He simply left behind his final words and quickly left the place. Ka Ca. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and stopped chasing after him. He had already figured out the other party's identity. He was the Holy Fire Manor's Leng Yun. From the moment the peak high-ranked demon core was mentioned, Xiao Chen had already started to feel suspicious. When he saw the pale white extreme yin flame being used, he became sure of it. Xiao Chen was confident that he could have caught Leng Yun and dealt with him if he chased. However, when he saw the floating white origin flame at the side, he abandoned all thoughts of continuing. The earlier fight was too intense. It had already attracted the attention of some people. If Xiao Chen continued to chase after Leng Yun, he would end up losing both the origin flames, and suffering a great loss. Xiao Chen withdrew his own origin flame back into his right eye. Then, he used his spirit sense to envelop Leng Yun's origin flame and drew it into his sea of consciousness. After Xiao Chen completed all this, he quickly left the place and returned to his courtyard. 10 minutes later, Xiao Chen arrived back at his courtyard. The moment he stepped in, his expression suddenly turned strange. In his sea of consciousness, the 4 clumps of lunar true flame started to fight with each other for an unknown reason. The 4 strands of even more pale white lunar true flame all headed for that strand of extreme yin origin flame. They all fought with each other as they all rushed to that origin flame, intending to swallow it up. This situation looked like 4 somewhat weak middle-aged men surrounding a strong youth. The youth was very strong, but the middle-aged men outnumbered him. They gained the advantage by ganging up on him. The fluctuations in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness were caused by the intense resistance of the origin flame. Although it lacked intelligence, it instinctively did not want to be swallowed by the lunar true flame. When Xiao Chen saw this scene, he fell deep in thought. The yin flames had different ranks too. There were the extreme yin flames, peak yin flames, and the lunar true flames. Of which, the lunar true flame was of the highest rank. The lunar true flame was as famous as the solar true flames. As for the legendary heavenly flame, rumor said that if the lunar true flame and solar flame perfectly merged with each other, they would be on the same level. However, when the extremely opposing energies of yin and yang touched each other, regardless of the grade, they would generate an intense explosion. It would be even hard to merge the highest rank flames of solar true flames and lunar true flames. In the past, the Tianwu Emperor relied on his talent and the heavenly flames to conquer the continent, becoming unrivaled. From the looks of things today, energies of the same attribute can merge or swallow each other up and enhance themselves. Xiao Chen decided to give the lunar true flames a hand. After all, the lunar true flames were ranked higher. Furthermore, they were the flames that Xiao Chen needed for refining secret treasures. Not protecting them would result in losses for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense turned into a small exquisite arrow. Then, he shot it at the origin flame in his sea of consciousness, separating it apart. The origin flame's advantage was that it was very dense. Hence, the lunar true flames could not swallow it up. Now that Xiao Chen had separated it and made it less dense, the 4 clumps of lunar true flames immediately found an opportunity to quickly swallow it up. As time went by, the origin flame became weaker. On the other hand, the lunar true flames became stronger. Soon, it was able to completely swallow the origin flame. Shoo! The space within the sea of consciousness trembled. When the lunar true flames completely swallowed the origin flame, the 5 flames merged and formed a clump of lunar true flame. With a thought, Xiao Chen summoned out the new lunar true flame into his palm and carefully observed it. The pale white flame floated gently above Xiao Chen's palm. It did not look any different from before. However, there was a bright spot the size of a grain of rice in the center of the flame. In the past, the lunar true flame was merely 4 clumps of flames and did not have an origin flame. Now, it had finally obtained an origin flame of its own. It finally became the true lunar true flame. Although the origin flame was pitifully small, so small that it could be easily missed, it made Xiao Chen very satisfied. He had not expected to gain such a benefit this night. The first step was the hardest to take. With the origin flame as a root, the flame would be able to grow stronger. Finally, some headway was made in the matter of refining secret treasures. Xiao Chen placed the lunar true flame back into the sea of consciousness. Then, he muttered to himself, "Holy fire manner, the holy fire that they have might be a seed of extreme yin flame. If I have the opportunity, I should go and take a look." After Xiao Chen dealt with the 2 corpses in his yard, he entered his bedroom and lit up the lamps. As the flames swayed in the lamp, he continued reading Bai Lixi's cultivation notes. It was now late in the night. Xiao Chen's eyes were starting to get tired. He had not slept in the past few days. Thus, he could no longer hold on and fell asleep at the table. Gee. Soon, the melodious cries of birds resounded outside the room. When Xiao Chen woke from his deep sleep, the piercing sunlight shined through the crack in the window and into his eyes, making him squint. He breathed out a long strand of turbid qi and stretched his body. He instantly felt refreshed and alert. I have not slept so comfortably for so long. Unexpectedly, I have slept until noon. It's about time I go and find a fist technique. Xiao Chen went to a restaurant and ordered some food. Then, he called over a waiter and tossed a bag filled with hundreds of inferior-grade spirit stones to him. Do you know how to get to the ancient desolate underground market? When the waiter felt how heavy the bag was, he immediately smiled and said, "Young hero, are you going there to sell or buy?" Xiao Chen placed down his wine cup and asked, "Is there a difference?" The waiter replied, "There is no difference actually. The location is the same. However, if you are going there to sell, you need to go and register at the Heavenly Extermination Union first. You look like this is the first time you were in Desolate City. I was afraid that you will end up making a pointless trip." Xiao Chen said, "That's not a problem. I am not selling anything. You can just tell me how to get there." The waiter said, "After you leave the restaurant, just keep heading west. You will reach a lake in the middle of the city. We call this lake the Hidden Dragon Lake. The underground market you want to go to is under the lake." After Xiao Chen finished eating, he left the shop and immediately headed west. There were many cultivators traveling in the air. Occasionally, Xiao Chen would see some cultivators who were rushing around crash into each other. Xiao Chen did not want to attract any unnecessary trouble. So, he raised his flying height to 1,000 meters. There were much less people there. The higher one flew, the more essence would be exhausted. Unless there were any urgent matters, regular cultivators would not fly higher than 1,000 meters. Now that Xiao Chen's vision was not obstructed, and he was at a better vantage point, he suddenly discovered a tower in front of the many buildings in the distance. Below the tower, there were 5 sharp horns sticking into the air. At the tip of the tower, a formless spiritual energy was rushing into the air, scattering the clouds and forming a large vacant area. Xiao Chen muttered, "Is this the ancient desolate tower?" Unfortunately, Xiao Chen did not have a lot of time now. Otherwise, he would have definitely gone and checked it out. It was unknown what exactly was in this legendary and mysterious tower. After 1 hour, a lake with spiritual energy extending throughout it appeared in Xiao Chen's vision. The surface of the lake was calm, without any ripples. However, there seemed to be a deep undercurrent within it. If one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the faint roars of a dragon. So this is Hidden Dragon Lake. Could there really be a dragon hidden within this lake? Or was it just casually named like this? Xiao Chen smiled gently and landed on the water surface. Boom! Just at that moment, a loud roar came from under the lake. The water suddenly blasted apart, creating large splashes. A horrifying aura extended out in a circular manner into the surroundings. Shoo! Shoo! Under the suppression coming from the aura, circular walls of water rose up on the surface, growing continuously larger. After a while, they arrived before Xiao Chen and passed through him, traveling to further places. Xiao Chen's clothes instantly became wet, turning him into a soaked chicken. TL note: soaked chicken, luo tangji, refers to a person who looks drenched and bedraggled. Strange, it felt like something had startled me and caused me to freeze up. I clearly could have dodged that, yet I was unable to even move my essence. Xiao Chen thought as he used his essence to dry his clothes. At the same time, he felt curious about the roar he had heard earlier. How unlucky, what did I do to deserve this? This old ancestor had not acted up for several years already. Let's stop speaking about it and go down first. We are merely drenched. You can use your essence to dry yourself. A cultivator nearby cursed in a whisper. He had suffered the same fate as Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not bother to continue thinking about this problem though. After all, he would not be able to figure out the answer anyway. He covered himself in an essence shield, took a deep breath and sank down into the lake like the other cultivators around him. Under the water, several cultivators could be seen moving around. Xiao Chen followed the crowd and slowly sank deeper into the water. 10 minutes later, Xiao Chen saw a bright, white light in the center of the lake. Before he could react, a strong suction force pulled him down. By the time Xiao Chen reacted, he found that he was already floating in midair. Above him was a transparent barrier, keeping the lake water away. Underneath was a bustling market with lanterns lighting the place up. There were many people moving below and the place was full of the sound of people bargaining. Xiao Chen hesitated for a while before slowly floating down to the ground. Soon, he disappeared into the crowd. The market was covered in streets lined by merchants, so it ended up looking like a dense spiderweb. Xiao Chen walked on one of these streets, looking around interestedly. Indeed, it was as Xia Xian had told him. There were all sorts of people here. For example, demonic cultivators, who were normally rarely seen, could be seen in significant numbers here. The cultivators who set up stores seemed to sell almost everything. There were all sorts of spirit beasts' corpses, materials from demonic beasts, spirit cores, demonic cores, medicinal pills, secret manuals, cultivation techniques, spirit weapons, and secret treasures. There were so many items that they were uncountable. Furthermore, these were just the regular items. What was more surprising were the extremely strange and evil items. For example, there was a live girl placed at a store and had a price tag attached to her. After asking about it, Xiao Chen found out that this girl had a rare absolute yin body. Evil cultivators would use her as a cultivation cauldron. Then there was the 10,000 blood demon pearl, which was refined from human souls. 10,000 martial saint cultivators had to be killed in order to refine it. All sorts of evil items could be found here. Along the way, Xiao Chen saw many cultivators with deep cultivation. Thus, he carefully withdrew his aura. In here, he was considered as nothing. Those strong people could easily squish him to death with one finger. However, there was no need to worry about someone killing you in the market. No one dared to disobey the rules of the Heavenly Extermination Union. The only problem was that it would be hard to say what would happen after you left the market. Suddenly, Xiao Chen stopped at a store. His gaze was fixed on a black stone about the size of a human head. This is raw astral iron. After refining it, one could obtain a palm-sized piece of astral iron, Xiao Chen said, feeling excited. Astral iron was a meteorite. It could be used to fix strong and ancient secret treasures. It was also an important material for refining secret treasures. Xiao Chen had obtained a small piece of astral iron in the past. He used it to repair the Eastern Emperor bell. Unfortunately, the Eastern Emperor bell was ranked too highly. That small bit of astral iron was insufficient to completely repair it. This resulted in the Eastern Emperor bell becoming a piece of scrap metal once again. The owner of the stall seemed to barely be an inferior grade martial king. He did not appear to recognize this as astral iron. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm and unchanging. He squatted down and picked up a rank 7 demonic core that was beside the astral iron. He asked, "How much is this going for?" When the owner of the stall saw that there was some business, he immediately smiled and answered, "This is a demonic core from a rank 7 wind-attributed demonic beasts, the green hummingbird. If you embed it into a spirit weapon, you will be able to increase the attacking speed of the spirit weapon. If you are a wind-attributed cultivator, you can use the turbid cloudy water to draw out the evil aura of the demonic beasts. Then, you will be able to absorb the energy of the demonic beast. You can also use it to refine medicine." Seeing the owner of the stall introduce the item in an unending manner, Xiao Chen interrupted him. He said, "I know all this. What I am asking is, how much is it? Not what can it be used for." The owner of the stall smiled embarrassedly. He said, "It is not expensive. If you are paying in inferior grade spirit stones, it will be 20,000. If in medial grade spirit stones, then 100. Xiao Chen took out 20,000 inferior grade spirit stones and tossed it over to the other party. He said, "I will be taking this demonic core." How straightforward. This demonic core belongs to you then. The owner of the store revealed a smile and tossed the demonic core to Xiao Chen. Clearly, he had not expected him to be so straightforward. Xiao Chen caught the demonic core and played with it. The expression on his face indicated that he was very happy. The owner of the stall instinctually felt that Xiao Chen might be a big customer. He might even be the disciple of a big sect. Given that he was so generous when purchasing the demonic core, the owner could not bear to miss out on this opportunity. When he saw that Xiao Chen was preparing to leave, he quickly said, "Young hero, would you like to continue looking around? I still have some good items that are not displayed." Xiao Chen turned around, appearing to be interested. "What good things?" The owner of the stall chuckled and took out some secret treasures from his spatial ring. He laid them on the ground in a orderly fashion, one by one. Xiao Chen picked them up and felt them carefully. He could not help but feel somewhat disappointed. They were all some lousy secret treasures. They might have been useful to martial saints but were completely useless to martial kings. There were merely of the same grade as that jade pendant he had obtained in the past. Xiao Chen's expression remained unchanging as he nodded. He said, "These are good things. I want them all. How much are they? Don't give me all that nonsense, introducing all of them. Just tell me the price." When the owner of the stall heard this, he was mildly stunned. After a while, he rejoiced in his heart. It seemed like he had met one of those legendary rich heirs. He clearly did not understand anything but pretended to be an expert. He even called a bunch of rubbish good things. Secret treasures were valuable, but not all secret treasures were worth a lot. To them, as martial kings, such low-quality inferior grade secret treasure were just a pile of rubbish. Seeing the owner of the stall remain silent, Xiao Chen said somewhat impatiently, "How much? If you are not going to tell me the price, then I will be leaving." The owner of the stall recovered his wits. He clenched his teeth and said, "If paying in inferior grade spirit stones, it will be 200,000. As for medial grade spirit stones, it will be 1,000. Xiao Chen remained silent and did not say anything. The owner of the stall realized that he over-exaggerated the price. He quickly said, 150,000 inferior grade spirit stones will do. Xiao Chen appeared as though he had just recovered his wits and said, 150,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Very well, it's a deal. When the owner of the stall heard this, he could not help but feel like vomiting blood. It turns out that this fellow did not hear what he had said earlier. It was him who overthought things, causing him to lose 50,000 inferior grade spirit stones. The owner of the stall was now filled with regrets. When he looked at Xiao Chen, who had paid up and was preparing to leave, he felt dissatisfied. He said, "Wait for a moment, young hero. There are still some more good items." Xiao Chen smiled and said, "There are still good items. Take them out for me to see." Good items, good items. The owner of the stall looked around his store, trying to find something that he could pass off as a good item. Suddenly, he spotted that dark and swarthy raw astral iron. His eyes lit up and he smiled, "It's this item. Let's see, how do I explain this?" The owner of the stall was instantly placed into a difficult spot. He did not even recognize this item. He only felt that it could be useful and displayed it at his stall. Now that he needed to introduce this, he really did not know how to do it. He felt very anxious. He hoped that Xiao Chen would say once again, "Cut the crap and just tell me the price." Xiao Chen showed a doubtful expression and asked, "What is this?" "Haha, young hero does not know what is this." The owner of the stall laughed embarrassedly. Then, he said, "You must know what this is, should I just tell you the price?" Xiao Chen shook his head and said, "I really do not know what this is. Isn't this just a black piece of rock? What use does it have? Tell me more." The owner of the stall felt very anxious. He did his best to search for words to describe this black rock. However, even after thinking for a long time, he could not find any.